what will it take for this Labor government to drop its support for Israel? What will it take for this Labor government to drop its support for the disastrous and genocidal invasion of Gaza? What will it take for Australia to start standing up to the United States and Israel and actually take actions to stop the genocide unfolding in Gaza? Apparently, over 31,000 Palestinians being murdered in Gaza is not enough. Apparently, Israel bombing Palestinian schools, hospitals, homes, bakeries isn't enough. Apparently, Israel deliberately, and this is key, this is not some natural phenomenon, deliberately engineering a famine that may well end up killing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Apparently, that is not enough for this Labor government to drop its support for the invasion of Gaza and drop its support for the State of Israel. So no sanctions or actions to stop Israel's genocide. In fact, all Labor has done is support Israel by allowing weapons to be exported to the country and refusing to even support South Africa's ICJ case at the International Court of Justice. But what this government has done while there is an engineered famine in Gaza is suspend and cut aid funding for 48 days to Palestine. That's what they did. No sanctions for Israel, but sanctions for Palestinians. That is truly remarkable. This was in a period, by the way, when the International Court of Justice found there was a plausible case for genocide in Gaza. And what did this Labor government do? Stop aid funding to Palestinians. And by the way, 80% of all the world's critical famine, it's in Gaza. And that's what the Labor government did. Not only that, but they temporarily suspended the visas of Palestinians fleeing this conflict and this genocide, but apparently no sanctions for Israel. Now, we know about the critical famine. This parliament knows, everyone in this parliament knows, the 31,000 people murdered, 13,000 of whom are children. And look, sometimes these numbers are hard to comprehend. The horror of it is hard to comprehend. But to give some perspective on just how horrific this is, the average number of kids in an Australian school is 420. That means that 30 schools' worth of Palestinian children have been killed. 30 schools. Think about the futures that these kids could have had. The loves, the relationships, the connections to their parents, all snuffed out. And this parliament can't even bring itself to oppose the invasion of Gaza and the genocide happening right now in Gaza, being carried out by the State of Israel, by the way, with weapons manufactured in Australia and exported to Israel. Now, the UNICEF chief has said, and the headline is, Gaza babies don't even have the energy to cry. And there is an effort in this parliament right now from the major parties to turn away from this horror, to try to pretend like it's not happening and there's nothing you can do. But you know full well that if this parliament was able to take sanctions on Russia justifiably, then we can take sanctions against Israel. And in future generations will ask, for every parliamentarian in this House, what did you do when this was happening? And let's talk about what's happening. And this is the article. 1 in 3 babies under the age of 2 in northern Gaza are suffering from acute malnutrition, according to UNICEF. Catherine Russell, the executive director of the UN's Children Agency, described in an interview with US broadcaster NBC, essentially the body starts to consume itself and it has nothing else, and it's a painful, painful death for children. I have been in wards where babies are suffering from malnutrition. The whole ward is quiet. The babies don't even have the energy to cry. This is what's happening right now in Gaza. There are babies and children in the arms of their parents, if they haven't already been killed by the State of Israel, who are dying slow, quiet, painful deaths. And you have to ask yourselves, every member of this House has to ask themselves, do not pretend like you don't know this isn't happening. And you have to ask yourself, when this was happening, what was every member of this parliament doing? What did you do? In 10 to 20 to 30 years' time, and don't turn around and think that you can lie to people in the future and say, oh, we were doing everything we can, because we know that you weren't. We know that you weren't, and the Australian public knows as well. So think about that for a moment, because what we need is a permanent and immediate ceasefire, banning of weapons sales to Israel, joining the South Africa's case at the ICJ. That is the bare minimum when such a horror is taking place on our watch.
Authorised by J. McCall, Australian Greens, Canberra.